Welcome to ES Ascension News for June 2017. Our theme this month, Divide and Conquer Tactics. Dear Ascending Family, our Christic families that live in the higher creational realms share the same universal truths of unity that we are working to reveal for humanity as we awaken to remember our real origins during the ascension cycle. We know that this advanced civilization based on unity consciousness and Christ principles exists and is our true home and origin. Yet, as we are embodied on the earth at this time, we have been trained in the divide and conquer strategies of the Antichrist. This month, we look at the particular strategies being used against humanity in the war over consciousness. During this pinnacle time in the ascension, we are aligning every light fiber fully with unity consciousness. Our spiritual family does not understand these warfare methods from where they are in the higher realms. So it is up to each of us to recognize these divide and conquer strategies in action and not unknowingly feed energy into them. People that have retained their sense of true humanity and embody more heart-based qualities are more capable of experiencing and sharing loving feelings with others. Being capable of experiencing loving and benevolent feelings gives rise to the desire to be meaningfully connected with life, feeling empathy and compassion for humanity, and caring about what happens to the earth and nature in the future. Heart-based and soul-connected people have an inner conscience that guides them towards positive thoughts and behaviors and helps them to build the spiritual foundation of an integral, ethical, and good nature. Thus, many heart-based people are unable to recognize the larger overview of the global domination agendas that employ psychological warfare tactics and mind control strategies that are designed to hide the crimes against humanity. Many awakened starseeds and indigos are not inherently manipulators, deceivers, or power mongers, as they have come from more advanced civilizations. As a result, our group tends to be even more naive to the hidden motivations, deceit, and complex psycho-emotional manipulation tactics that are used on the earth to maintain power. When we do not understand the scheming motivations and deliberate divide and conquer tactics that are behind psychopathic behavior, we can be blindsided by the negative forces that are generated in deceptive and secretive agendas. There are dark forces in the world that take advantage of our emotional weaknesses and lack of knowledge in order to harvest negative emotional energy and further enslave human consciousness. Consequently, in order to perceive the harmful motivations behind the extensively pre-planned line of attack and schemes that are used by those who are predatorial in nature, we must study, divide, and conquer strategies. On planet Earth, we have humans and non-humans that are predatorial by nature and seek to completely dominate, enslave, and even kill other people they believe to be weaker than themselves. Many of these predatorial people are power mongers that may call themselves leaders, but they are really the polar opposite. The definition of a leader is to be of service to the collective group, to something larger than self-interest. Power mongers use extensive manipulation and psychological warfare strategies to get what they want from others. They use coercion and intimidation as a basic tool to siphon energy and resources. To more fully understand the manipulation tactics and strategies of those predator minds who have taken over the power structures on the earth, it is important to identify and recognize their warfare strategies as they are being carried out in the environment as crimes against humanity. Can we identify the markers that define crimes against humanity that are hidden within complex media manipulations and diversion tactics of divide and conquer strategies? Are we willing to seek the truth and recognize that there are anti-human agendas that are methodically planned out to intentionally harm and destroy the human race and the earth? What would be the motivations behind power mongers, both human and non-human, that have made the choice to sell out humanity, to acquire earthly power and wealth for blood ransom, which feeds their alien handlers? Warfare strategy for takeover. In order to stop unconsciously commiserating with divide and conquer tactics used by corrupt power structures rewarding predatory people that do not care about the harm they inflict on others, we have to see them in action and understand their larger objectives. Predators, controllers, and tyrants employ the archontic deception strategies, most important psycho-emotional warfare manipulation tactic used for the purpose of annihilating their competition and perceived enemies, which is divide and conquer. Divide and conquer is the primary archontic deception strategy used by the negative alien agenda to weaken and disable humanity by supporting its ideologies through the shaping of its negative belief systems into the fabric of our global society. Broadcasting divide and conquer belief systems is directly related to shaping a world death culture based on endless wars and producing ever-present enemies. We must see divide and conquer when it is being enacted and be self-aware enough to stop promoting the power structures and predatory people that insist on carrying out divide and conquer tactics against humanity. Divide and conquer ultimately serves the negative alien agenda, and it is the most important warfare principle to understand in the intended conquering of the earth and the consciousness enslavement of the human race. When the human race is divided, we are easily infiltrated and conquered. Divide and conquer is a socio-political, exopolitical, militarization tactic to gain and maintain power by breaking up larger concentrations of power into smaller pieces that have less power than the group that is implementing the warfare strategy for takeover. The use of divide and conquer warfare strategy is meant to empower the group of predatory people in the psychopathic controller or ruler archetype, human or non-human, to gain complete rule over another group of people in order to take total control over them and their resources. The strategy is to break up existing power structures and strong leadership and take away open access to important knowledge and information. This includes corrupting details of historical events and obfuscating current global events through news that washes out factual records. This also includes placing obstacles on smaller power groups to prevent them from uniting or linking up and sharing their communications, which help to build strong and unified networks that open access to greater knowledge. Additionally, these include preventing solidarity from forming within shared interest groups, intentionally causing division and separation through rivalries, fueling hostile oppositions that generate discord, breeding chaos and confusion, directing a host of complex psychological manipulation tactics that are used to breed egoic-based conflicts and distrust among the people. The tactic is to divide the populations or factions of people with shared interests or common goals, who might be able to oppose their rule and challenge their power if collectively unified against the controller group. The agendas to generate conflicts can be covert and hidden, or completely obvious when knowledgeable about divide and conquer strategies that are used for takeover or infiltration of any kind of organization or group, nation, or territory. Divide and conquer predatory tactics can be seen just about everywhere in the negative ego mind control that exists in the materialistic 3D way of life. This reflects the long-term shaping of anti-life impulses and values that have been infiltrated into the controller pillars of society. Thus, it trickles down into the unconscious behavior and impulses of many individuals throughout society, which directly influences them in the way they communicate, relate, and think of other people. Divide and rule. Thus, divide and conquer strategy, also called divide and rule, works through inciting division and separation, intentionally provoking conflicts between the collective interests of the people. So the war-mongering strategists can maintain their power and increase their agendas by assuming rulership over all of the infighting groups and their resources. Historically, this strategy was used in many different ways by empires that were seeking to expand their territories and natural resources. Divide and conquer is the primary psychological warfare motivation used by the negative alien agenda to mind control humanity, to incite division and violent conflicts amongst the people of Earth, so they wage perpetual wars to kill, sacrifice, and traumatize their own species. A planet and global population that is divided in war against itself is weak and easily conquered. It can be effortlessly ruled and enslaved from the outside or through covert means. Divide and rule strategies have three general broad strokes that are implemented to subdue the target or enemy identified for takeover. Encouraging divisions, conflicts, and chaos among the opposing groups to prevent the formation of strong alliances and unification that could challenge the power of the controller or ruler. Promoting and heavily rewarding those predatorial people that are willing to cooperate and participate with the controller objectives or negative alien agenda to absolutely rule others, no matter how immoral, inhumane, or unethical. Fostering distrust, hostility, and hatred to incite violence or war between any powerful people or groups that could pose a threat to the controller. Divide and conquer, or divide and rule, should be thought of as a warfare tactic that is purposely used against the perceived enemy in order to weaken and destroy them. If we observe divide and conquer tactics being used everywhere in the human civilization globally, then we can easily recognize the fact that this warfare tactic is being implemented to incapacitate and disable humanity. This means that we are being perceived as the enemy, and warfare tactics are being implemented against us without us realizing what is occurring. The question to ask as we investigate the macrocosm of planetary leadership and beyond is, who is it that perceives the human race as the enemy? In warfare, many tactics are psychological, and a process is set up to dehumanize, demoralize, confuse, and terrorize the opponent, so that the battle is won with less physical resources and no actual combat. All of these principles of warfare are transferable into 3D settings that have been socially engineered for humanity to carry out the death culture. Once we can see the driving strategies and the main principles of warfare playing out in the world around us, we are equipped with the higher knowledge to spiritually strengthen and unify ourselves. This higher knowledge helps us to shift the paradigm of divide and conquer on the earth, to instead consciously choose to participate with peaceful resolutions while rejecting the push towards warfare strategies. Basic principles of psychological warfare. Psychological warfare is the deliberate use of various manipulations, promotion, and deception techniques, such as spreading propaganda and terror, to induce or reinforce attitudes that are favorable to gain strategic advantage over others. Sun Tzu, a Chinese military strategist, originally said, "The best victory in warfare is the one in which you never have to fight your enemy in actual combat." Thus, psychological warfare tactics are also marketed as a self-improvement sales tool for ambitious, materialistic people that plot to maneuver into positions of power in order to gain advantages in business, relationships, and socio-political influence. Essentially, this is to secretly scheme and manipulate others in a well-thought-out strategy in order to get what you want from the power structure and to get access to other people's resources. Generally, it is desirable to achieve these goals in such way that the plotters remain undetected in their climb to power and position, without anyone even realizing the entire situation was a calculated scheme. In the past, such Machiavellian schemes were thought to portray the devious behavior of criminals and despots, believed to have undesirable and even appalling human character traits. Today, these extremely negative behaviors are normalized and commonly applied in the business operations of the everyday world by financially rewarding people that act as predators. Thus, the current terrain requires that we open our mind to comprehend the most common concepts of psychological warfare, because all of us are being exposed to it every day. What are the predator minds scheming? Invoke fear. The purpose is to manufacture as much fear as possible, to create dread and terror in the minds of the people, so that they will avoid rising in groups and instead become weaker and disabled. To maintain this continual state of fear buried in life's many stressors, as well as perceived threats to survival, means activating the fight or flight reaction in the human nervous system and brain. Eventually, this takes a serious toll on the overall health of the body and sanity of the mind, as it rapidly breaks down immunity, increases disease states, and drives painful mental imbalances. Division to confusion. When the opponent group targeted for attack is large, cooperative, and unified in their forces, by separating them from one another, or separating them into smaller units, the entire group is more easily defeated and controlled. When the separation into smaller units is successful, the attack is then on their common bonds of unity, seeking to confuse them with fear and misinformation, so they will not know which way to turn, what to expect, or who to trust. In the stewardship of any project or organization, this is a critical concept to understand. Demoralization, a process in psychological warfare with the objective to erode morale or dehumanize those perceived as the enemy by intending to destroy their dignity and morale. It can encourage them to retreat, surrender, or defect rather than confront them or to defeat them in physical combat. Demoralization and dehumanization is the most important tool of psychological warfare and intentional torture used to break a person. Demoralization is most commonly implemented through various forms of fabricated propaganda to weaken people, while dehumanization is commonly used by the satanic agenda to mock and defile human dignity or attack the spirit within the person. Ignorance versus intelligence. Those that have the most knowledge, intelligence, and conscious awareness of what is really happening in world events will have the most strategic advantage. Those that do not have access to accurate awareness of events or truthful knowledge, but instead are manipulated and deceived to believe false impressions and illusions, will be at a greater disadvantage. Knowledge of the truth is power. Managing intelligence and controlling access to information includes supplying the perceived enemy or opponent with disinformation in order to trick them into making the wrong decisions based on lies. In the current warfare climate, diminishing easy access to open source knowledge and sharing of information freely within the global community, it is an important concept to understand. Overwhelm and wear down. Constantly use greater strength in applying heavy forces that overwhelm your opponent by creating never-ending issues that are designed to wear him down and erode his willpower and resiliency. Bureaucracies, impossible compliance, insurance, tax, and legal channels that keep people bogged down in never-ending paperwork, long lists and queues, under the threat of intimidation or threat to financial security or persecution. This is also carried out in legal forms as death by 1,000 paper cuts, through the increase of overwhelming problems and burdensome bills. When people's hopes are crushed and their expectations for their life are confused and burdened, eventually they become so drained they have no energy to refuse the constant attempts of subjugation and just give up. How many of these tactics of psychological warfare that are normalized in our everyday society can you recognize that are currently impacting the quality of your life? Knowing that these strategies are being implemented, what can you do to change how you approach the control structures and the employed people that blindly follow a boilerplate that unconsciously reinforce these divide and conquer schemes? Predatorial negotiation tactics. Divide and conquer is a predatory negotiation tactic commonly used in sales and marketing business in the 3D world to manipulate people's perceptions and get them to do what you want them to do. In this case, it would be for the purpose of generating sales and making a lot of money on a consumer product or an investment deal. Under the guise of generating winners and losers in the psychopathic corporate workplace model, it has become socially acceptable to lie, cheat, and manipulate other people, as long as that person is making large sums of money and reaching quotas for himself and his employer. What kind of predators is this society shaping? By rewarding deceivers and manipulators with incentives such as huge paychecks. What might this look like in business? The controller's strategy is to intentionally cause stress and confusion in the business competitor or enemy camp by getting them at each other's throats through spreading disagreements so they are distracted from the larger issues of the negotiation. When they are arguing over their own internal interests and problems, then the manipulator works to gain control over the larger issues happening in the negotiation. When others are distracted in disagreement with one another, the manipulator pays attention to the proposed solutions that the key people with influence in the group will accept. The manipulator then supports the key person's position to work against the opponents in their own internal group to gain favor and to get what he really wants in the outcome of negotiation. Increasing stress and confusion in the targeted business person or in the masses is done on purpose to break them down, so they go into self-doubt and become uncertain and confused about what is actually happening. Controllers purposely increase stress and confusion as a manipulation method to destabilize and weaken others, so they will be easily persuaded to go along with any solution the controller offers just to reduce their stress. This is also called the problem, reaction, and solution tactic. This works on the principle that a drowning person will clutch at a straw. So the controller, in his manipulation, deliberately attempts to push them underwater so he can then offer them the straw. This is so he can offer only what he is willing to in order to take advantage of the other's weaknesses and not offer the best solutions for mutual benefit. Predatorial people don't care about the negative effects they have on others, only that they believe they are the winner. Their negative ego only wants to win, and they see everything as between winners and losers, unable to comprehend the motivation of win-win agreements. When people are stressed, confused, and overloaded, common sense, rational, and critical thinking are lost. They generally fail to see the larger picture or overview and make impulsive decisions. Instead, they will choose the first thing offered to them that will reduce that immediate feeling of stress and confusion, even though it may cause much greater problems later on, or put them at a significant long-term disadvantage. Manipulating the perception of credibility. For divide and conquer tactics to be successful in the longer term, it becomes important for the controller to find an inner circle that acts as the representatives to manipulate the outward perception of credibility to the group of people they want to conquer. Controllers know that in order to persuade and control the way people think, that the perception of credibility and social influence has to exist. Credibility is the quality of being believable, having a good reputation, or accepting the representation of the matter as being true, real, or authentic. To manipulate the perception of credibility in the masses, the controllers introduce the flashy commercial appearances of credibility through fame, wealth, or celebrity that are artificially produced in marketing, advertising, and propaganda machines. The mass belief systems are shaped to believe what the advertising campaign and social influences are telling them is credible, no matter what the real motivations behind it are. The more famous a person's image is, the more initials behind their name, or the more wealth they have, somehow that person is considered credible and influential, as if what they say matters. This is followed by the masses many times without merit. By portraying dominating, narcissistic, or superficially charismatic personalities as desirable traits that have access to powerful authority, expertise, and wealth, these types of people are assumed to be instantly credible, no matter what their true character or their real actions behind the scenes. CEOs, salespeople, tyrants, religious leaders, scientists, as well as celebrities are aware that credibility is measured only by how other people perceive them and what organizations they are associated with that are also believed to be credible, and that it does not actually matter what is accurate or true. If they are perceived to be credible but regularly engage in unethical actions without consequences, there is no incentive to build real credibility or merit. This is a cause for the meteoric rise in workplace psychopaths being promoted to manage the inverted systems of control. Credibility through demonstrated actions doesn't matter in the workplace and in governments. It is only the marketed perception of credibility that actually matters. This is why the mainstream media and the news run marketing campaigns for promoting the agendas of the people and organizations that are in power. as well as character assassination agendas when those same groups step out of line with the controller agenda. The controllers know that to destroy a public person's reputation and credibility by circulating made-up stories or reframing the truth in order to attack their target's character is the way to interfere with public perception and destroy a reputation. The controller's use of mainstream media as an advertising campaign to manipulate the perception of credibility is perpetrated on the masses with total disregard for what is accurate or true information. The bottom line is how the power structures and representatives serving their agendas are being perceived by the public, and whether that mass perception will maintain their materialistic wealth, power, and control over others. Therefore, power-hungry people are more duplicitous to gain favor with others through false impressions and charisma, seeking to increase their credibility through emotional manipulation rather than upon personal merit and actual trustworthiness. Charismatic people tend to use charm and seduction to superficially manipulate others to satisfy their selfish agendas, which characterizes a deceptive person. This kind of person will act as if something is true, even when it's not true, in order to get others to believe their deception so that they will get what they want. Most people do not want to believe that a charismatic and likable person is lying directly to their face. So the manipulator actually acts as if it were true, so others will assume their deception is actually the truth. Obviously, it's not true, just because they act as if it were. This is the delusional behavior of sociopaths. Recognizing the manipulation tactics that are used to control the outward perception of another's credibility, such as those in power, and how this is used to socially influence and control others, is an exercise in self-awareness and paying attention to what influences us subconsciously. Charismatic people that have been conditioned to use persuasion, seduction, or manipulation techniques through whatever means to gain power or influence are not trustworthy or ethical people. As we become more aware and notice how others deliberately or unconsciously influence us, especially with marketing campaigns, then we can be consciously aware of choosing how to respond when other people are manipulating us to do something. To regain our personal power and be fully aware of our intent and consent, we should not allow others to manipulate us into impulsive actions, but to seek to see the larger truth and listen to the guidance of our inner selves. Divide and conquer tactics are designed so that people easily give away their authority, power, and influence to the most depraved and incompetent people. Depraved people are purposely handed power in order to feed the inverted systems of the controllers. This corrupt system feeds the illusion of credibility that was produced through the skillful manipulation of marketed perceptions, with large sums of advertising dollars backing them. Distraction principle. For most people, there are a limited amount of things that we can think about or focus upon at the same time. If the controller generates an incredible amount of external distractions and bogs down the conscious mind with many personal problems that we have to think about, we pay less and less attention to what is going on around us, in our environment, or in the larger global scape. It is evident that the controllers rely heavily on using distraction principles to incite survival fears, as the fear agenda exists everywhere and is heavily exploited in the mainstream media. Their thought process is, if they can distract your attention into fear, they can slip around your guard and remain unseen. Distraction and misdirection of attention are very similar and are tactics that are often used at the same time. When distracting someone, the controller is attempting to take full control and to manage what that person notices or is able to perceive. One way of gaining control in a dispute is to distract the person from the real point, leading them to argue over side issues that are completely irrelevant to the real subject. In misdirection techniques, the controller deliberately misdirects the attention to focus on something else, such as, "Don't look here, look over there, where I want you to look." Distractions can come from both external sources and internal sources. The motivation of someone intentionally creating external distractions is that they generate an assembly line of interference, which disables their ability to focus their attention on meaningful, accurate, and truthful things. When people are unable to focus their attention, they effectively have attention deficit and scatter themselves. Thus, it is much harder for them to manifest anything meaningful to their spirit that requires a deeper concentration of focusing one's energy and intention. External distractions may include a variety of factors such as internet clickbait, social media, phone or text messages, emotional dramas, substance abuse, porn, and fear-based media and television shows. There are also internal distractions, which are mostly caused by the unruly negative ego's survival fears, such as anxiety, worrying, obsessions, and fantasizing. Misdirection is a form of deception in which the attention of an audience is focused on one thing in order to distract its attention from another, generally to take the advantage or controlling position on an issue. Misdirection is the cornerstone of nearly all magic. So it is good to remember that magicians, or people that use trickery to paint a false picture, are commonly using tactics to misdirect attention. Misdirection takes advantage of the limits of the human mind and attention span in order to give false impressions for the wrong mental picture to form a faulty memory. The magician uses this to manipulate the viewer's perceptions of sensory input, leading them to draw false conclusions. There are many common military strategies that are based on distraction and misdirection. As we become clearer on seeing the everyday use of divide and conquer tactics, the natural extension in the macrocosm leads us to see the controller agenda operating in the total militarization of our planet. The militarization of global society. Militarization is the process by which a society organizes itself for military conflict, war, and violence that is based upon the glorification of the military and the cultural values that are placed upon military-based power. With the social engineering of the death culture, militarization is used by those in the world governmental power as a strategy for maintaining global dominance, ensuring geopolitical interests, as well as exercising exopolitical power and control. Militarization can inject massive amounts of cash and resources to revive an industry, boost a nation's faltering economy, or to carry out an assortment of dominance-based agendas through the strong arm of the military-industrial complex. The military-industrial complex outwardly appears as the alliance made between a nation's military and the defense arms industry, the massive corporate transnationals that supply all military technology and weapons meant for waging war. Also understood to be serving the blood sacrifice or killing of the human race. Thus, the military-industrial complex is a deep cover used to conceal the presence of the negative alien agenda to carry out their long-term divide-and-conquer warfare strategy against the people of this earth. The defense or arms-producing industry is a global commercial industry responsible for the manufacturing and sales of weapons and military technology throughout the world. Departments of government also operate in the arms industry, buying and selling weapons, munitions, and other military items, which infuse billions into the vast political network that is supporting the endless war economy. The driving force behind this relationship between the government, defense contractors, and arms dealers are the corporate conglomerates behind them that massively profit off of the suffering of humanity. One side of the deal is obtaining the weapons to kill or make war, while the other side is being paid exorbitant amounts to manufacture and supply the weapons. Thus, the setup is for the controllers to make obscene profits on both sides while promoting the negative narrative of ever-present enemies. The manufacture of endless enemies maintains the external locus of control over humanity to suffer in endless wars and live in a permanent war economy. The controllers are addicted to maintaining coercive power on the world stage the same way abusers and tyrants gain and maintain total control over a victim for selfish gain and abusive purposes, such as perpetrating physical, psychological, sexual, or financial abuse. The goal of the power abuser is to control and intimidate their victims on the earth into learned helplessness, and to influence the general population to feel that they are powerless to change anything in their lives. When the human race is subdued and distracted through the various psychological warfare tactics that condition learned helplessness into the human psyche, they can only deal with the current pressures of today. When we only look at today, we look for instant gratification and do not consider the long-term consequences of today's actions. We remain ignorant of the long-term consequences of the soft kill agendas in play around us. What are soft kill agendas? Military war strategists that have identified enemy targets for divide and conquer agendas, whether they are human or non-human, apply the exact same kind of war strategies. Whether that target is nations, populations, or an entire planet, when assuming the strategy for takeover, the strategies are the same. One obvious conclusion for experienced military personnel that attack enemies from the ground or from the air is that long-term planning for implementing Soft kill methods have a far better performance record. This is especially so when the intelligence operation can remain concealed and thus requires much less physical resources than hard kill methods. Soft kill is a military term used to describe the covert agenda for slow killing without the knowledge of the person or persons under attack, using disinformation, withholding evidence, and psychological warfare tactics. It is the act of disabling an enemy target without the use of outward physical destructive force. Soft kill also refers to the use of hidden technologies to subdue enemies, such as applying electronic technology countermeasures for crowd control that alter the electromagnetic signature of a person, whether used on individuals, groups, or entire populations, thereby altering the physical body as well as psychological and emotional behavior of the group that is being targeted for subjugation through the use of electromagnetic technology and mind control. If we can see the current soft kill measures in the environment that have been methodically put in place through the well thought out long-term planning of the controllers, we can easily see the hidden purpose of these genocidal methods, including the eugenicist policies leading back to the divide and conquer agenda of the negative aliens. An example of current soft kill agendas is the enforcement of legal poisoning in the general public that is made through vaccinations, water fluoridation, genetically modified organisms, chemtrails, herbicides, pharmaceutical drugs, and other chemical, biological weapons. All of these examples change the electromagnetic frequency and chemistry of the body, brain, central nervous system, and DNA signals, which are designed to radically impair immunity, consciousness, and intelligence factors over the longer term. The majority of the population is on high stress overload, trying to meet the most fundamental and basic human needs. As a result, many people cannot begin to fathom the larger reality of the off-planet negative alien agenda divide and conquer strategies combined with the controllers on the ground implementation of soft kill methods. However, there are individual and collective actions that we can take that help us to empower ourselves and each other, and to know that we can make a difference. Gaining knowledge that this divide and conquer agenda is happening against the people of this earth, and to identify what it looks like in everyday life, is the first important step. We have to see it operating and understand what the motivation behind the agenda really is before we can find the courage to take productive steps forward. The most empowering step we can take is developing our heart-based relationship to our higher self and working on ourselves spiritually. We must find within our heart our direct connection to God, our highest power, whatever that sacred heart connection to all of life truly means to you. When we are spiritually connected, we gain the inner strength, courage, and higher intelligence that lends itself to the coping skills we need to overcome the dark night of the soul and spiritual warfare. Challenging circumstances can often lead us to work towards making important changes in our lives that shift our awareness and priorities to be aligned with our inner spirit. No matter what is happening in our world, we can move into greater states of wisdom that bring more deeply meaningful experiences with others, so that we can exchange unconditional love, peace, and contentment. Unity consciousness and living in truth. Unity consciousness is the first practice of the Law of One in the belief or direct gnosis that every being is an individualized expression of God, which our ultimate spiritual purpose is to give expression to God in order to embody our heroic probability, the highest fulfillment of our Christic, divine, eternal nature. When we experience or feel into the truth of unity consciousness, our connection expands with all of life. Then we feel spiritually inspired to dedicate our life to the seeking of truth and to live in dedication to serve truth principles. Truth is both relative and absolute. While on the earth, we have the challenging task to reconcile the two truths that represent the energetic synthesis between the realities that exist on the earth in matter and as it is in heaven as spirit. Accessing the two truths and applying them practically in our lives sets us free and unifies us with God. However, we must be willing to free our mind in order to see the relative truth, no matter how unpleasant it may appear. And the truth is, we are in a war over consciousness with false gods on the earth, and we know the universal laws of God are absolute. It is the force of God's love that ultimately protects us from the impostors and guides us through the spiritual warfare on the earthly plane. We gain access to truth by going within, by meditating and praying to the inner Christ Spirit for divine inspiration that guides us through the many lessons, challenges, and consciousness growth experiences in life. It is the power of God's Spirit that we may access in loving prayer and meditation that connects us to the highest intelligence possible, the God-Christ mind, that brings us healing, wisdom, and loving guidance. It is the God-Christ mind and pure diamond heart that can guide us safely when navigating the schemes, lies, and deceptions that are the divide and conquer agendas of the Antichrist embodiment on the earth. On the path of truth-seeking, as we gain understanding of the laws of life, knowing the truth that is within the universal laws, we must seek to live in the truth that we have gained. We must live what we know as truth. No matter what is happening on the earth and in our lives, we can apply that truth in the way we interact with everything and everyone. As we recognize our unity with life and the wholeness that is expressed in the entirety of our multidimensional spiritual being, it is important to take the time to create the sacred space that honors ourselves in body, mind, and spirit. Every day, take the time to make conscious contact with God, your inner Christ Spirit, through a spiritual practice of personal prayer and meditation that feels supportive and true to you. Recognize that the earth is undergoing spiritual warfare during the ascension cycle, and inform and educate yourself. It is important to find energetic balance and loving kindness in your personal life, to create your own sacred space that is designated for meaningful connection with those you love, as well as getting relaxation and rest. Starseeds may remember the times of living in more spiritually advanced civilizations, when we were not persecuted for living in the principles of Christ consciousness. The universal laws and unity consciousness exist way beyond this earth, in a way that most third-dimensional people that have been indoctrinated into the archontic deception way of life and violent religions have long forgotten. Our Christic families that live in the higher creational realms share the same universal truths of unity that we are working to reveal for humanity. Unity is a process of unification that bridges into a formation of equality for all people that exist within the diversity of aspects that may be defined in different cultures, physically, socially, economically, and spiritually. The unity process allows each person or group to maintain their individuality and preferences and still form unity while sharing common goals for humanity. What do we remember of our Christic way of life? We live in the principles of unity, and our societal structures and lifestyle reflect the knowledge that all people are directly connected with God in oneness. We trust in the universal laws acting out in our life, and we choose to live in alignment with the harmony of these laws, knowing that everything that happens has a greater purpose for our consciousness expansion, learning, and spiritual healing. Therefore, we deeply respect the unique energy signature and life purpose of all people and creation, in order to allow those unique expressions to unfold in their highest creative potential as God intended. We deeply care for our environment, our planet, and we are in communication with the natural kingdoms and animals in our world. We know that all life is sacred and connected to God, so we would not hold a thought form to kill others or go to war, because warfare is violating to the soul nature, as well as killing an aspect of ourselves. Thus, we don't really own anything. We are stewards of things that supply our abundance of fundamental needs, and we do not understand the concept of possession, slavery, or taking ownership of other living things. We live in telepathic states in which hiding things or deceiving others is impossible, as all interactions and communications are seen in colors and energy that transmit the signature of the person's thoughts and feelings to another. Therefore, we communicate with total honesty and openness. As before coming to the earth, we did not understand the concept of deception or manipulation when speaking with others. Highly advanced Christic beings live in more simplicity that allows harmony with nature and alignment with the universal laws. Thus, we have the natural response to equality in our interactions and roles amongst each other. Therefore, we also have respect for the life wisdom of our elders, who are honored and have important roles of leadership and guidance among our peaceful society. We know that this advanced civilization based on unity consciousness and Christ's principles exists and is our true home and origin. We were trained on the earth to learn the divide and conquer strategies of the Antichrist, because our spiritual family does not understand these warfare methods from where they are in higher realms. While we are here, it is our job to never forget who we really are and where we come from, no matter what happens. Thank God we are the Cosmic Christ. Please only take what is useful for your spiritual growth and discard all the rest. Thank you for your courage and bravery to be a truth seeker. Until next, stay in the luminosity of your avatar, Christos Sophia heart path. Please be kind to yourself and to each other. With a loving heart until next month.